Hey, good morning and good afternoon. Good morning to those on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those on the East Coast. We're excited to be with you today. My name is Travis Wild. I am an academic account manager here at TestOut, specifically working with the K-12 department. But we have lots of people from TestOut here on board with us today. One of those specifically, Johnny Carrera. I'd like to introduce Johnny. Johnny's been all over the place with he's been here with TestOut for the last 6-7 months. Johnny,
1 year.
1 year. Time flies when you're non-COVID.
That's right.
So we're excited to have Johnny. Johnny brings a wealth of experience from both a professional background as well as an academic and a post-secondary and secondary institution. So let's get started. Just a couple shout outs. I noticed looking at the attendee list, hey Tom, Mary, let's see. There's a couple, Scott, I saw you on here as well. So it's fun seeing some familiar faces join us today as we talk about the release of PC Pro. And as we specifically talk about some of the trends that we're seeing with PC Pro and what's going on as far as industry is concerned and how TestOut is meeting those industry demands as we focus on our release for version 7 of PC Pro. Johnny, do you want to go to that next slide? We'll show. We're going to give away 6 of these throughout the presentation. These are Arduino starter kits. So we're going to give away 6 of these. So you have to type in there. Mr. C is my favorite teacher. Okay, first response there. Hunt Heron. Hunt, you are our winner, our first giveaway winner. Great. Well, let's move ahead. Today we're going to start off by talking about some of the, here at TestOut, our goal is to help your students prepare for future jobs in curriculum. Our goal is to help a student make a difference in their lives using breakthrough technology. Many of you are longtime TestOut users. Some of you might be brand new to TestOut. But today we're going to talk about some of the trends we're seeing, 5 trends in fact that we're seeing in industry, and how we're approaching those with PC Pro and our release of version 7.0. So we're going to start off, Johnny. Let's start off with number 1. We're taking a look at these trends and really asking the questions, are your students prepared? So we're going to start off here with a slide, and Johnny, I'll let you introduce this, but the differences we're seeing, and this would be from what? This would be 4 iterations ago of the A+ certification exam, and what we're seeing 12 years later. So yeah, jump in here and tell us a little bit about this.
So when I was first asked to be part of this and talk to teachers about how does a teacher help their students understand that what the IT field is, but also understand how to maneuver through this IT field and really take control of their future and not be afraid. So what I did is I went back to when I was teaching this particular subject in the high school. So I've done lots of things in my career and in my teaching career. So there was a time when I was deeply entrenched in teaching the A+ and the PC Pro curriculums. So I thought I'm going to go back and check out when I was teaching it and what has changed. And what we're looking at the screen here is the 701 test, which is back 2010. And then of course the new objectives that are coming out now, 1101 test. And it cannot be any more different, in my opinion, right? And again, when I was teaching it, how could I have foreseen that this industry was going to change in these directions? Well, there's really no way to really foresee the future of how things are going to be, but you can what you want to do is prepare the students for change, right? You may not know what the change is going to be, but you need to make the students totally aware that they're going to be lifelong learners. And the problem with the term lifelong learners to the students, it's almost like, oh, you mean after high school I have to learn more? Can't you teach me everything I need to know for the rest of my life? So they just
want to be done with your class, right? They want to be done with Mr. C's class and move on. They don't want to, yeah.
Right. They don't. Do I really? And you have to really tell them that this is not a bad thing, right? This is exciting. This is what makes this field so exciting to be a part of, because you're not going to be stagnant. You're not going to have to be doing the same things all your career, right? This is a good thing, and if the best you can, the best that you can convey this to the students that it is a good thing, then they will adopt that idea that it's a good thing, right? Like I used to always tell new teachers, how you tell the students something, well, this is going to be hard, well then it's going to be hard, right? This is going to be difficult, then it's going to be difficult. But if you start with, this is going to be exciting, this is a good thing, then they're going to go, whoa, Mr. C is saying this is a good thing, this is a good thing, right? So, but if you can notice on this slide, there's a few things that really stick out on this slide for me as an IT teacher, is how the terminology or some of the subjects that are here weren't there 10 years ago or 12 years ago, right? So if you look at objectives here, the word mobile device is not here. Virtualization is not here. Hardware is here, right? But what the most striking thing, besides the fact that there's terminology was not there 12 years ago, is the percentages, right? And the one that really sticks out is security, 8% in 2010, right? Now we're at 25%. So that shift is really the major thing that you have to prepare the kids for. Again, you don't have to see the future, but if you teach the kids how to learn and how not to be afraid to tackle these changes and be prepared, then I think that's a big service we'll be providing for the students.
Yeah, you know, Johnny, one other thing I'm thinking about, this would be a good conversation at the beginning of any of these classes teaching this, is to bring up these objectives and say, hey, we're teaching you today what is expected of you to know, right? And that is going to change. So I think you have to have that conversation with a student right off the bat of that lifelong learner, because 10 years from now, these are going to be, there's going to be areas that we haven't even thought of yet. I mean, we're looking at.
And again, CompTIA is producing an objective, because remember, CompTIA doesn't create the objectives, right? They look at the industry, they go to the big companies like Microsoft and Cisco, and they ask them, what skill sets do you need now for your employees to have to be able to work in your environments, right? They're not forecasting the future. They're taking a snapshot of the industry at a moment and saying, these are the skill sets that are needed, right? So again, these objectives are what they are saying the industry is, you need to specialize in now. So how does a teacher go to their students and say, okay, well, I'm going to teach you what is relevant now and how to join the workforce and be able to hit the ground running. But what you really should have, like perhaps, is a conversation. If you look at these objectives now, which ones do you think are going to increase in the number, right? So things always increase. Like we went from 8, right, to 25. So if we look at these current objectives, ask your students, which one of these numbers do you think is going to rise? And which one will be gone someday? Right? Because look, there's some that are gone on this list, right? And some have been added on this list. So again, in my opinion, they should be looking right here, right? This cloud and virtualization, right? So again, that's the conversation that you can have with the kids to prepare them for the idea of ever-changing environments.
Yeah, so one thing that I'm going to point out here, maybe if you could put, I'm just getting some comments and maybe I'm a little bit echoey, so maybe I'll just let Johnny talk more about here. One of the things that I noticed right off, and you pointed this out, security. Like security is a great example of where it was covered in the past, but as we see these trends morph into more substantial and everything, we're going to talk about that as one of the trends, so I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but maybe they don't go completely away, but they're changing and evolving as we see trends go through.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say they're going to go away. They do. They change and they become part of other objectives, right? They start getting buried into another term, right? Like so, they get combined with like networking security. Right now, networking security is becoming bonding together, right? It's almost like whenever I talk to leaders in the industry, the word network and security are together now. Network security, right? It's not no more networking security, it's network security, right? It's becoming one word together, right? And so that's, again, a big shift, because when I first got into this industry, the idea of the hacking and virus didn't even exist, right? We had no idea that these things were going to be a problem. For us, it was all physical networks being down and software issues. That world has changed.
Yeah. So we're going to get into some of these 5 trends, and we're going to discuss a little bit more how PC Pro is really advancing to cover some of these trends. And there was a comment in the chat. Yes, PC Pro is geared towards the A+ certification exam from CompTIA. Depending on where you live and your needs, you may also want to take a look at our own certification exam, the TestOut PC Pro certification exam. as an option as well, but we will cover all the objectives for the new iterations of those exams. But before we move on to the next slide, Johnny, I got to pick a winner. We've got another Arduino kit, and so let's go to Adam Sawyer from Shriver Jobs Corp Center. So Adam, you are a winner. We're picking a few of these by random throughout our webinar here. So if you'll just put some shipping address where we can send that gift to you, we'll get that out to you. Okay, let's move on to, so let's talk about some of these trends, Johnny, and how PC Pro version 7.0 is covering that, and we'll go from there. Okay, so let's talk trend number one. What do we got? Job candidates are expected to know how to use a variety of vendor-specific IT tools. Why don't you explain this, and then I'll maybe jump back in here and see how.
Yeah, so this is to me the biggie. So I've been preaching this for like the last 5 years to my students. And when I was working at Rackspace's Cloud Academy, the days of neutral understanding is kind of over, right? Now that you're expected to be able to work on lots of different devices, lots of different environments. And again, there was a time, even when I was in this working in the field, as an IT specialist, well, you could specialize in something and learn something deeply and understand it, and then everything else was kind of peripheral. I'm afraid those days are over, right? And the companies are now expecting you to be able to adapt and learn new things quickly, right? So again, I always explain it like a tool belt, right? If you only have one tool in your tool belt, I mean, that's cool that you have that tool, but those days are almost over. You need to have a lot of tools in your tool belt and be that Swiss Army knife of IT professional that is able to adapt and change quite quickly. And so I tell people, you need to now be experienced in lots of different areas, right? You need to know Windows, Linux, Apple OS. You need to be able to converse, right, or troubleshoot things that, again, we used to think of a specialist. Now you are the specialist, and you have in everything almost, right? And so in the last 10 years, I've been asked to work on, I mean, all kinds of devices that, again, I wasn't asked for before, but unfortunately, it's just the world we live in now, right? We have to be able to adapt. And, one day I'm doing a load balancer, right? I'm doing a F5 load balancer. The next day I'm asked to do a firewall. The next day I'm asked to do a Linux box, right? And all of a sudden you're being asked to understand all these different technologies. So again, as a teacher, how do you instill this kind of spirit of being brave and be willing to take on challenges, right? And again, it's one of those things that you have to teach the student early to explain that how the industry is moving away from this neutrality of, I don't have to know specifically a specific device, and be open to learning these devices and make it exciting for them.
Yeah, and you're going to see more. So as teachers get in here, we're going to take a look at some of those specific vendor-specific tools that students need to be familiar with. And so, right off the bat, we're trying to make that more specific instead of just, like you said, a general neutral, learn it this way and it's good. No, we're going to try to give you some of the tools and some of the access to some of those tools.
And the one thing that I would stress again is the Swiss Army knife of being able, but not only that, but the one on that screen that really is the one that's telling is the scripting, right? The automation. The days of being able to connect to devices, singularly connect and configure and prepare are again slowly fading away. You have to, orchestration is becoming a major way we're doing, especially new device deployments, and understanding that you need to be able to have some programming experience. And if you can instill that and start that process of getting the students aware of that, and don't make them afraid of it, because programming was always one of those things that when I was in college, I was afraid of it, and you need to make sure that students understand that it's just part of it, it's fun and exciting, and it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so vendor-specific IT tools, and we'll see some of those in our labs with version 7. Okay, let's move on to trend number 2. Job candidates need to develop effective troubleshooting skills. So I'll kind of lead off on this one, and we're seeing this. So like I said earlier, I work in our secondary market, so high schools, and now we're going to have our digital digital literacy culture, of course, where we may see that even used down into the middle schools, right? even in a middle school, and we're seeing this as a trend even into K through 6, is these troubleshooting skills, that analytical thinking mindset for your students. And so as we have our lab environment, some of those, we're really trying to emphasize that troubleshooting skill mentality. How does a student come in here and analyze what's going on, understanding the problem? And you and I have talked about this a lot, Johnny. You really have to help a student understand the why behind everything, right? Not just that here's the steps of how you need to do things. Do A, do B, do C. We're in an era of learning in which students really have to understand the why am I doing this, because this is how I'm going to go about solving the problem, right?
That is so important. I think the earlier you can instill the idea of that this industry is all about fixing problems, right? In fact, I encouraged a lot of new teachers to always start every new subject with, here's the problem, right? The problem is this, right? Even in any type of way to guide them that way, right? Everything for me was a problem. And the reason why is because you need to instill in the students that this is not a bad thing, right? The word problem sounds negative, but it's actually a good thing. That's what they pay us for, to be problem solvers, right? And so what I used to tell my students is, I always used to say this, I'm waiting for this phone call. I've been doing this for 30 years. This phone call has never come to me. Hello, Johnny? Yeah, this is Johnny. Hey, everything's working great. Oh man, no problems whatsoever. Thank you so much. And I'm like, oh yeah, you're welcome. That phone call has never ever come to me, right? Every time I get a call, it's hair on fire. I'm losing $100,000 an hour, which is, they always say that, right? And so again, that's a good thing. And if you can get the students to understand not to make that, a bad thing, right? You want to instill this idea of, you want to be the go-to, you want to be the person they call, the clutch, right? And you do that by practicing your skills, understanding, again, the why is so important, right? Giving the students that rationale of, why am I learning this? Well, you're learning this because these are situations you're going to be in, and you're going to see these problems. And if you can, and sometimes you're not going to have, I always say, people always say, oh, well, can't you just Google it? Well, if your network is down, there is no Google, right? I mean, how are you going to be able to Google something if the network is down, right? So you're going to have to be able to think on your feet, be able to understand things. And again, the earlier you can instill this as a positive, right? Exciting and to be a part of, then, because again, if I'm in a room of people and someone says, hey, we can't connect to the internet, I'm going to be the person who goes, oh, what's going on? How can I help, right? Because that's the challenge, is the best part of the job, right? That's what makes it exciting.
Right, and getting your students ready to take on some of those scenarios. So I when I first started with TestOut, I loved the real life scenario. Hey, here's the problem. Here's what are you going to go and do and fix that? So,
Right.
and then I always tell teachers, if you can recreate any of these in a classroom, touch and feel environment, and give them that experience and kind of a walkthrough, we've just solidified everything they've learned from our labs, from our videos, from our text lessons, and really instilled that.
That's really kind of sped up this idea of everyone has to be able to have troubleshooting skills. Is the situation from working from home and being remote, right? It's a whole different mentality of troubleshooting. In the old days, you were always in the room with your equipment. Now you're having to troubleshoot from far away, possibly, or remote into these devices, or remote into these problems. And so it really becomes, you can't see it anymore, right? You're almost like, well, I'm seeing a small snapshot, but you aren't seeing the big picture sometimes, and you have to, in your mind, put all the pieces together to understand the situation. And it's a whole different level of troubleshooting that is, I think, exciting. And but again, the kids have to know that that's what they're up against.
Yeah, so hopefully version 7, we've given you some scenarios and some new stuff to really allow your students to go through that. Okay, let's move on to, let's see, item number 3 in our trends that we're approaching with version 7 of PC Pro. Okay, this one's a good one. This one's something I'm passionate about. So if you follow me on Twitter, I have cybersecurity advocate as one of my descriptions, because I know how important it is. So job candidates need to have a solid understanding in fundamental cybersecurity practices. So I briefly mentioned this at the opening, but this is a huge part of where we're seeing trends going with everything that's connected now to the internet. And think of all the IoT devices, all our different ways that we're connecting, and to be able to secure those and be able to, so for, I don't care what IT job it is, security has to be top of mind these days, right, Johnny?
Yeah, this is a subject that is, again, that even at the beginning we talked about the percentage, 8% now, 30% of the part of information. This is the thing that is really ramped up, and I think the situation we're all in is really just amplified it, right? Because who would have thought that someday thousands and thousands of people are going to be working from home, right? So as an IT and network security specialist, at one time, there was a time when we had a nice warm and fuzzy feeling that everybody was in our network, right? Everybody came to work, right? We firewalled this building essentially, right? And we were all in the network, and getting into the network was difficult, right? And so it was, as an IT net security specialist, right? You were thinking, okay, we can firewall everybody in here and make everybody safe, train them how to, but those days are kind of over because of the fact that everybody's remoting in through the internet, and they're having to travel these insecure channels. And again, as a security specialist, it's almost a nightmare scenario, right? Having all these people connecting through this insecure network, right? So, but again, if you see that as a plus, as a way of opportunities, right? More opportunities. We need more security specialists. We need more people aware and trained and able to mitigate these situations. This is a very exciting time. I mean, I've been lucky that I was involved in teaching in high school when Cyber Patriot was first being introduced, and I had, again, all of a sudden a knock on my door from two Air Force colonels walked into my room and said, "Hey, we have a problem. Our government needs more security specialists. How are we going to fix this?" And they invented this game, right? And again, we were all like, our eyes were all being opened, like, oh my gosh, there's a shortage. And so this is, to me, this is the biggest shift in our IT environment, right? Everything has changed. The conversation has changed because of this.
Yeah, I was telling somebody the other day, anybody in the state of Florida, reach out to me if you have any questions about this, but they just announced a $20 million grant specifically for cybersecurity education for post-secondary and secondary institutions to emphasize cybersecurity programs and pathways in learning. So this is a huge national problem. If you go to the NICE, either the NICE or NIST, you're going to see, millions of jobs, unfulfilled jobs, and that numbers nobody's ever, you hear 1 million, you hear 2 million. The reality is nobody can really put a number on it because everything's connected now, and every job has a security element, right? And so that's why we're seeing this big trend with PC Pro, the A+ certification, moving to more security principles, because guess what? Everything's now needing to be secured. Hey, Johnny, before we move on to the next one, let's give away another one of those Arduino kits, because I am kind of keeping an eye on some of the chats, and I did want to say, let's see, there was one in here that caught my eye. Oh shoot, where did it go? David Hurst. David, I think let's give you a winner. He said he started with computer mainframes and punch card 40 years ago. I now know so much more than I did then. However, there is so much more to know, and I know so much less. Right. So, David, put a shipping address. You're understanding one of the things that we're trying to convey to your students is they need to be lifelong learners. Once they graduate your program, have them reach out to the continuing education department to TestOut so they can continue and learn. But the reality is, thanks for understanding some of that. Like everything we learned 10, 12 years ago, we're continuing to learn, and staying on top of that's important. So in security, that's a huge, huge spot here. Okay, let's move on, and let's pick another one at random. I want to give another prize away. Just break things up here. Is that all right, Johnny? So let's see. I think David. Let's see. I don't know where David is from. He might be I'm a K-12 guy, so I'm going to give away one to one of our high school instructors here. And let's go with. We got this one pulled up from Brooke. Send it over to me. Next one on my list is Monroe Motts from the Institute of Innovation. So Monroe, if you're in there, please put a shipping address in one of the answer spots, and we'll give away spots, and David was higher ed. So I'm trying to keep things fair here. You know, here at TestOut, we sell to all different academic institutions, both post-secondary and secondary. So try to keep them balanced here. Okay, let's move on. Oh, hey, this is a good one. Which is this number 4? Is this number 4 on our list? Yeah. So this is a good one, and this is one I'm excited about that we're going to see a lab in PC Pro version 7.0. So job candidates need to acquire help desk, asset, and knowledge management skills. So I was going through with our head of product management here, and he was going through this deep dive where he spent 2 days just going over the objectives and some of these responsibilities that are changing for entry-level IT people that are working towards this certification. And so understanding how help desk ticketing systems work, asset management, you know, here at TestOut, we're for the most part all working remotely. They sent me home with a couple laptops and a computer, and you know, tracking all the equipment, where it's at, how it's being used, and then knowledge management skills. So we have added a ticketing system into one of the labs, and I think Craig's going to show that to us here in a minute. But Johnny, what are your thoughts on this one?
So this is a big shift. Again, so being in the field this long, there was a time when, you know, we as a network specialists or IT specialists, you know, we were kind of like in the basement of the company, you know, kind of hidden. We'd show up, you know, quickly, fix your computer and leave, you know. There were the days that was kind of like the way it was, right? But kind of those days are over. So when I was working for, again, the Cloud Academy at Rackspace, we met with local large companies, USAA, we met with several companies here in town, and we asked them, how can we enhance our curriculum to help fill the needs you have for the employees you want to hire from us, right, out of our school, the students from our school. And they gave us a list, and again, there was like 10 companies we went with, and almost all 10, the list was very similar. The first thing, the most important thing was, again, the idea of a Swiss Army knife individual, right? Someone who isn't locked into a very specific field, right? I can only do Windows, I can only do Linux, I can only do Cisco equipment, I can only do, right? They really wanted a broader understanding, right? The second thing that was the most popular was the understanding of a ticketing system, and that really threw us back. We're like, really, you need us to train students how to use? And then yes, because again, no matter where you go, there's going to be some accountability ticketing system, right, that they're going to have to be used to convey information to either, you know, customer-facing people or to internal employees that are still customers. So this is a big shift, right? The idea of training the students, because in the old days it was like, well, let the companies train them. That's their front end, that's their stuff, those days are over again, because they're looking for someone to hit the ground running. You know, I remember when I was a manager back in Austin, and we would hire a new employee, and that employee was useless to me for months until they learned our processes, until they learned our systems, right? So we were essentially paying them for nothing. Though they don't want that anymore, right? Companies want someone who understands that there's going to be, you know, different software applications that are going to be used, understand what they're used for, not have to explain this stuff. So this is another huge shift, and it seems like, who cares? It is very, very important that the students understand that they have to grasp these things quickly.
Yeah, and that leads us kind of into, let's jump into the next slide, because I think these two are kind of intertwined a little bit here. So, you know, that help desk, and we talked about that. And one thing you and I have talked about, Johnny, is it doesn't matter where you're working.
Right.
You know, in any way, you're customer facing more than you've ever been. So we talk about some of these help desk, you may not talk to the customer directly, but you're going to be required to fill out a ticket that's going to provide information to the customer, the end user, in some of these responsibilities, right? So, so our fifth here, and this one I'm going to put a little bit on the teachers. They've got to do a little bit more outside of just TestOut to work on this one. But job candidates must possess professionalism and effective communication skills. So, I'm married to an English teacher. That written and oral communication and being able to do that is huge. In the K-12 market, we call it interdisciplinary collaboration. So this is where you can get involved. Some of your English teachers and such, at least in a K-12, makes it very easy to do.
Right. So again, this is a big shift, and every job role now is customer facing, whether it's your own employees that we're servicing or customers who are using our products. But when I first got into this field, the idea of professionalism and communication skills wasn't even on the map, right? That was not part of like something that you had to have that skill set. Those days are over. And another thing that I want to point out is effective communication skills, right? So a lot of teachers take that line and think verbal, right? Verbal communication skills, but that is not, it's not limited in that anymore, right? And it's not limited in a couple of ways. There's emails, right? So as an IT professional, you have to be able to communicate through email. Anybody's like, well, email's been around since 73, right? But yeah, but it's still a major way of communicating. But the biggest change is the chat. The chat is a huge shift, right? The idea of like live chatting with somebody, conveying information, right? That's concise, that's understandable, right? Understanding the wordage has to be right? Because maybe you're talking to a person who's not technical, and if you use technical terms, you're going to confuse them and irritate them and make them upset, and all of a sudden they're looking for a new vendor, right? So again, these are skills that we have to have our students ready for. And how do we accomplish that? Well, we accomplish that by creating scenarios, right? Have them create a ticket, or you create a ticket and have the student, document what was done, right? And have them present it some way so they can, and you look at it and go, oh, that's very, that was good. That wordage is right, how you explain it or not, right? So this is something, again, who would have known that we were going to have to prepare teach our students for these different communication skills, because most people are working from home and they're not in the room.
Yeah. We had the opportunity yesterday to help with the Alabama Skills USA competition, and my colleague Amber. So the part of their competition is we had them call in as a service desk in a virtual environment like this and see if they could resolve her issue. That's going to be a huge skill set for professionals to do. And so while TestOut Labs, once again, this is number 5. I'm going to put this a little bit on the teachers here. You're going to have to find ways to get creative and use some of these scenarios to give your students the practice to communicate and really use those skill sets.
They have to be taught how to phrase, how to bring it down to a level of understanding for someone, and not look down on that person, right? And, oh, you're an idiot, no, you can't do that,
Yeah, I'm looking in some of the conversations here, and I want to shout out here to Matt Henry. He says soft skills and interpersonal skills are no longer options. Today, those skills determine who gets an offer and who gets a thank you for applying letter. That's so true. Yeah. And then John, you're doing some of these. He says in our courses we include presentations to the class as part of the course. Yeah, you have to work on those communication skills.
Another thing you need to prepare your students for is the fact that this interaction we're having now is now commonplace, right? This video conferencing, knowing how to communicate on this video call, right? And also a lot of their interviews will be occurring in this type of situation. It's very rare that they come to the office anymore to be interviewed, and so again, all this has got to be in the mix. Not just you got the job, now you're communicating with customers. Just getting your foot in the door is now part of that whole scenario. We need to prepare them for this new world of communication.
Yeah, and great idea here from Jeffrey Davis. Talks about putting your students in teams and working in teams, because when they get to the real world in industry, they're going to work in those collaborative teams as well. So that's huge.
That is huge. I mean, I have very rarely been in a scenario where I worked alone. I mean, those are rare and far between. You're always involved with other people, maybe even other departments that you're having to collaborate with and come to a consensus on, and focus on a goal. So yes, the students have to be made aware that they're going to be in situations where they're going to have to be able to work with people, and the sooner you can pair them up and get them to be comfortable with it. And a lot of that is important in the classroom to create that comfortable environment, right? I remember on the very first week of my classes, my goal was to make sure the students knew that this was a safe, collaborative environment, right? Even the way I constructed my desks and put things in my room just it's spewed out. We're going to work together, right?
Exactly.
And like building computers, I would tell them, hey, I don't have enough equipment to build everybody a single. You're going to have to work with somebody, right? And I would never let somebody work with the same person all the time. I was always shifting, always changing. And again, creating this safe environment for the students is super important, because if not, they're gonna gravitate to certain people. They're gonna gravitate to not want to participate because of it. You have to really cultivate that early.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to jump down. Craig Russin has gone ahead and he's recorded some of the new labs and some of the updates that we're going to see in the lab environment. I know everybody's, especially those that have used PC Pro forever, want to see some of those. So I'm going to go ahead and run this video with Craig.
Thanks for the introduction, Travis. Now it's time to jump into PC Pro and actually show you what we've been talking about. So let me go ahead and minimize my screen here. I'm logged in to test out PC Pro, and you can see on the left-hand side that we have all the different chapters here. I could click on any chapter, and to the right appear different sections and learning activities. We're going to spend our time in Chapter 11 on networking, in particular the section 11.9 network troubleshooting. You'll notice in here we have different icons represent different learning activities. The first icon is video tutorial. The second one, a video demonstration. Then we have text lessons. Computer mouse icons represent hands-on labs, and we have section quizzes at the end. Note that also after students go through all the chapters here, we have full-blown certification exam prep for both the TestOut PC Pro certification, which is a certification that is included with student access, and also we have question banks to prepare the students for the CompTIA exams. Let's jump over to Network Pro. I'm going to click on the section heading here, and when I do, I can see different questions that students will be able to answer after they've gone through the section, key topics that will be addressed, and terms and definitions. Also, you can see listed certification objectives that are covered in the section. You'll notice on the far left and on the far right, I have these big arrows. When I click on those, they either move me up or down through the outline of content. Let's click on the right arrow, and this is taking me to a video tutorial. I can start this in standard or go into interactive. I'm just going to quickly give you a flavor of what's involved with this. So let's jump into the interactive script, where I have the video to the left and then the script on the right. In the videos, we use animations, diversity among some of the people that you will see. We just try and keep them visually engaging as students are learning the concepts or seeing demonstrations in our videos. I can click anywhere on the interactive script and it jumps to that location in the video. It's a great way for students to kind of navigate and go back and review sections in the video. Let's go ahead and click on the right arrow to move forward. We also have video demonstrations. For time's sake, I'm not going to launch this, but this would work just like the previous video you saw, but now I'm seeing a demonstration. It might be hardware, it might be software. In this particular demo, I'm learning about troubleshooting networks. This is critical for me so that I can develop my critical thinking as I walk through scenarios in these demonstrations. Let's go ahead and click on the right arrow to move forward. We also include text lessons, so there's no need for a physical textbook. We provide what would have been in that traditional textbook here within our own interface. All that content is available. Like in the video transcripts that you saw before and in the text lesson, students can copy the text to clipboard by clicking here, or they can go ahead and choose to print out the text. Instructors like these because, well, they're very concise and not full of fluff. Let's go ahead and move on now. Let's click on the right arrow. This takes me to the lab. We actually want to access the second lab within the content, so let's go to that. So here's the lab scenario, fix a network cable 2. Students will read through the lab scenario and then go ahead and click on Start Lab. So I'm going to go ahead and start that lab right now. While the lab loads up, on the left-hand side, you can see the lab scenario reappears. Okay, the lab has just loaded up, and now the scenario is there. I can reference that as I go through. Before we actually go through a part of this lab scenario, I want to paint the broader picture of the type of environments that your students will be able to engage with. So I am an IT admin in this scenario, and this is my office, my workstation that I'm on as an admin, and I have these different tabs at the top. So let's go and click on the hardware view, and this will allow me to see what equipment is available in the office that I'm currently in. So this will pull up my hardware here. So I've got different items that I can work with. On the shelf, I have different cables that I might need to work with in different labs, hard drives, network adapters, and these will vary depending on the different lab scenarios that I might be working in, and the many, over 110 labs involved with PC Pro. Notice to the right, I have an additional laptop here. Let's go ahead and click on that. This laptop's actually going to take me into Kali Linux. And here I can launch Google. Let's just pull up ZenMap as an example. I can launch Wireshark and actually even go in and view the network traffic. It's not part of my lab scenario, but I want to illustrate the wide variety of type of software tools that are available for the students to interact with. Let's go ahead and go back to the hardware view. While I'm in here, I'm going to go ahead and actually turn off the power on my workstation. And I can go to the drive bays view. I can toggle to the motherboard view. There's different things I can do here. So for example, I can scroll, zoom in. I can move a cable here. I could click on a cable. When I do, zoom back out a little bit here. When I click on one of these cables, it highlights, but I can click and drag and put the tip of my arrow on another potential connection point. You'll also notice that I can click on the power supply cable down here. So let's click there. And then across the bottom of my screen appear all the different potential cables associated with my power supply. You'll be utilizing these in other labs, not this particular lab we're in right now. Let's go to another layer, the floor one overview. When I click there, it gives me the physical layout of all the floor that I'm on. Yellow indicates where I'm physically at. Let's say I'm working on a networking task. I can go over to the networking closet and choose hardware view. And so when I click on hardware view, it's going to take me in and allow me to see the server rack and the instance of server 2019. For example, let's click on server 2019. I can go into the actual server interface. Let's go and manage, or go into tools and computer management here. And perhaps I need to change some access. Let's go to users here. And we have the guest account. Let's right click on that and go to properties. And I can see the account's disabled. Let's go ahead and enable that. So I click on apply and the account is now enabled. Let's go back over to the networking closet. And as we get in there, I can work on patch some cables here. So if I click on a cable, both ends of the cable highlight, so I can click and drag. What I do here on the server rack actually affects the entire network. So all those other workstations may be impacted depending on what I do here. So it's all the software, the hardware, the different tools are all integrated within this lab experience. And by the way, while I'm going through the lab, it's keeping track of what I'm doing pertaining to the scenario. Let's go ahead and click on floor one overview. Let's go to the executive office and click on the laptop. You'll notice that this laptop here has Windows 10, whereas if I toggle back over to where we started, so let's go to the hardware view. I actually left that computer off, so it's not showing as available to go right into Windows. So let's go to the front view here and boot up and go into Windows. There are some labs that when you're booting, you can go down, click here, and actually take it in the BIOS, and you can change settings in the BIOS. So a lot of wide variety of experiences your students are going to gain. The scenario on the left, though, which we're going to now start to work on once we get into Windows here, is, again, we're an IT admin, and we just received a call from somebody within the company saying, I can't log in. I can't get internet, and I need to get to work. Can you guys help me out here? So you've had that service call. What we want the students to do is go in and launch the ticketing system. Before they even get into this lab, by the way, we expect that they have some experience and understanding of how ticketing systems work. We'll also expect that they know how to enter PowerShell and use the IP config command. We expect that they have some experience with troubleshooting, because they're going to be doing troubleshooting in this lab and actually recognizing whether or not a network cable is faulty. So we're going to experience those type of things as a learner in this lab. Let's go ahead and click on the ticketing system and log into that, or log that call that we had, and open a ticket. So I'm going to, for time's sake, just copy and paste some of these things here. But the summary, I cannot connect to the network. The description, they came in this morning and cannot access any network devices on the internet. The information from the person who called me is Joshua, so there's Joshua's contact info. And then we have the Office 2 Windows 11 is the location and the software that's of their device that's having the issue. We know that the priority for this is high. So let's label that as high. We're going to change the assignee to Joshua Anderson, who is the one that called me. We'll have the date, and then the category, we're going to select network. Let's go ahead and save this ticket. Now I need to go to Joshua's office and actually start working on resolving the issue. So let's navigate over to the floor 1 overview. We know it's Office 2 in the workstation there. So let's go ahead and pull that up here. Now there's a few things that we need to do. In the bottom right, first of all, I noticed, yeah, indeed, there is no internet access. So that's something wrong there, but let's also run some other tests. Let's go ahead and right-click on the Windows icon and go to Windows Terminal. And we ask in the scenario for the students to access PowerShell, and they're going to ipconfig. And I can see, indeed, things are down here as well. I'm starting to suspect, though, that the issue is that there might be a problem with the cable. So let's go to our hardware view in this lab. So as I toggle over to hardware view, I can click on the back view of the workstation. And when I click on the network cable, it highlights here and the other end highlights here. But I want to zoom in, and there's another key item that I should be able to catch on to. There's no flashing light. If I had a green flashing light here, I'd know that I have connectivity. And I don't have that, which further makes me suspect that it's probably this cable that's the issue. So I can open up my cables on the shelf on the left. Let's go ahead and grab one end of the cable, drag it over, and then we're going to grab the other end of the cable. And in doing so, it's going to put it on the shelf. So there's the cable that was faulty, we believe is faulty. Let's grab our Cat6 cable here and put the tip of my arrow. So to drag items, I simply go ahead and click on it and hold, and then I can drag over and it will come with me, and I can put the tip of my arrow where I want it to connect. I think my image bubble was getting in the way of that happening. Okay, let's go ahead and click, put the tip of my arrow where it's supposed to connect. Once I do that, I can see both ends of the cable. The other end is still available. Let's connect that to our network over here. Now that those are plugged in, let's go ahead, first of all, zoom in. And I can already see a good sign here. I've got the green flashing light. Let's go back over to my monitor. Click on the monitor here to go back in the Windows. And then to the bottom right here, I can see I have Ethernet internet access. So click on it, right-click on that, and I can even see more details if I want to. Also, I have the option if I'd like, we asked the student to do this in this lab, is run ipconfig again. And I can see that, yes, I'm connected. So the issue has been resolved. Let's go back over to floor 1 overview, or sorry, back to Office 2. That's the hardware view. And then floor 1 overview, I want to go back to my office as an IT admin. Let's click on the software there. And I have the ticket here. So I should be opening this ticket and entering a new comment. For time's sake, I'm not going to do that. And I'll show you what happens if I don't complete the whole lab correctly. So let's go ahead and click on Score Lab now in the upper right. And I can see I got a 3 out of 4, 75% grade on the lab. If I'm integrated with Blackboard, Moodle, Canvas, Brightspace, or any other learning management system that's LTI compatible, these grades will carry over. I can also see a breakdown on how well I performed for the different tasks. I did everything correct, except I did not finish the last task. I hope you found this to be beneficial. We would love to get you access so that you can experience these labs. Are really designed to help your students prepare for career success, academic success, and sharpen their critical thinking skills. Again, it's Craig with TestOut. Back to you, Travis.
All right. So really exciting stuff. You might have noticed also some updated graphics and animations and the different buildings and dorm rooms, and we've really tried to expand out kind of that map and the interactivity between all the different resources there. So okay, let's go to the question and answer. I think we're about done. We've got 6 minutes left. Shoot. So sorry, Johnny, I have to hit, yeah, sorry, now you should be able to be the presenter now, go back to it. But let's finish up. I think I've got, like, Brooke, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I've got 2 of these Arduino kits to give away still. So let's go ahead and give away one, and then we'll save one for right at the end here. So just to make sure you stick around and pay attention here. But I do have some questions that have come up here. I've got 2 of these left. I think it's time to give one away. Asias Castillo from Yunker High School. You are our next winner. So Asias, if you will go ahead and type your shipping information, my friend Brooke will get that out to you. So hopefully I pronounced that right. Yunker High School. We got one more. You're probably guessing it's probably going to go to a higher ed person. So let's go to some of the questions and answers. And Johnny, feel free to jump in here if you want to. So let me move things around on my end, and let's talk about this. So first question: how much content is troubleshooting? How much is first line instruction? So Johnny, I'm probably going to lean on you a little bit more. How much is troubleshooting? How much is first line instruction? Well, I guess that probably answer. It depends on the resources that we're looking at, right? So the labs are going to give you a troubleshooting experience, whereas the videos and text lessons are going to give you more of that first line content.
Now some labs are designed specifically for troubleshooting scenarios, and they'll even say troubleshooting in some of the names of the labs normally. But yeah, so the meat and potatoes of, like, information that students need to learn so they can troubleshoot is going to be in the videos and fact sheets and other and demos. So again, that's what the resources to learn. And then again, some labs are just doing skills, right? Like putting in a hard drive, putting in but some are specifically with built-in problems that the student has to kind of think about. So
yeah, okay, we got quite a few here, so let's go through these kind of quick. For my students who are enrolled in version 6, when I move them to version 7, will their progress and scores also transfer? So their progress and information will transfer. Will stay in version 6 because that's the product that they were on. That is going to be very dependent upon you as the instructor, which version the class is associated with. So that's really important as you roll back into summer or fall, that you want to be updated to the latest version, which is going to be version 7, and make sure your class is associated there. Let's see, let me go up to another question here, and we're going to try to get to as many as we can here in our short amount of time. This looks so exciting. When can we start, and is there a cost? Yes, Galen, you can start today if you'd like. At the end, when we send out a recording, if you're not a current TestOut user, then you can go ahead and reach out through the link that will be sent for the webinar. There's a form you can fill out to get access. Beta release is out there for your teachers. So if you're a current TestOut instructor and you're not seeing that beta access, please go ahead and take a look for that. Also, I noticed somebody had commented in the TestOut instructor community on Facebook. It noticed something that wasn't complete. It's the beta version. Like I said earlier, we're still polishing that up and getting it going here. Let's see, other questions here. This was by Matt Henry. Hopefully we answered that. How much content is troubleshooting? How much is first line instruction? We got that one hopefully addressed. I'm going to go back up here. One of the questions was, do you integrate with a learning management system? Yes, we should, except for Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams. But if you're using Canvas, Blackboard, Moodle, Schoology, any of those, we should be able to integrate there. The cost for post-secondary student and do you need testers? Yeah, get in there on the beta version. Cost, I'm going to recommend, because we do sell into different academic institutions, reach out to your academic consultant there. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me and I can point you in the right direction. twild@testout.com. I can redirect that to the person that can answer the cost question for you and your particular school and students. Question on that was, do you sell with bookstores? Yes, we work with bookstores and selling and purchasing there. Yes, the slides this presentation we're recording will be sent out to you. So that was one of the questions. And also mentioned at the very beginning, if you missed it and jumped on, there's a lot of other resources outside of just this recording that we're going to be sending you. So please take a look at those. Don't ignore that email of the recording. There's a lot of links to some other good resources here. Okay, in my TestOut team, any other questions? I think we're at the top of the hour. Let's give away our last one. We're going to go with, let's see. The last one, my friend Brooke, Jerry Liggins from San Diego, continuing education. So Jerry, if you want to put your comments in the chat there, you're the last one to win our Arduino kit there. And so I think we got through most of the questions. Once again, if you wanted the beta version, that should be in there. If you need the full version release date, shoot, I should know this one. Anybody on my team want to put that in the chat? The actual release that students can purchase it and start running with version 7. I know somebody on my team is going to have that for me. Hold on one second. May 24th. Thank you, David. David beat our own TestOut people. Actually, it was coming in here. So, all right, Johnny. Any other last thoughts, questions? May 24th. That's your day for students.
I think I love this product. I've been using it for years and years. Got lots of kids certified using this incredible product. So I work for the company, but I spend most of my time not. So it's great.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any questions, reach out to your oh, you know what? There was one other question that I missed, and I apologize. Do we sell to outside of academic institutions? It was a question that there was 4 people on my team that wanted to go through it. Yes. Cameron Davidson, email me, twild@testout.com. We can get you in the right person there. We are selling this. Oh, you know what? There was another question. Is there a prerequisite? I knew there was a couple more that I missed. A prerequisite, I'm going to suggest that maybe take a look at our IT fundamentals or our new Digital Literacy Pro that's coming out, just to give your students the foundational knowledge that they need. PC Pro is a lot of information, so you may want to look at those as maybe a first step option, depending on where you're at. Does that sound good, Johnny?
Oh yeah.
And if we didn't answer your question in the chat, we're going to go back through those and sift through them and make sure we get your questions answered. So if we didn't get it in the session, I apologize, but we will send you some information to answer your questions. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thanks for joining us. Excited for version 7 of PC Pro. Take care.